I've been smoldering on this chapter for days now, thinking about my overall thoughts. And after really spending these days thinking about it, the latest chapter of My Hero Academia has a lot of good and a lot of bad. It is definitely a interesting mix of a chapter, and I want to kind of go over that. And I don't, like I said, 100% hate the chapter, but I also don't 100% like the chapter. There is a lot going on in this chapter that really just irks me a little bit. And so I guess let's get into one of the major points, and that is obviously the Toga stuff, because I think by now, if you know anything about me, you know how much I like Toga. I like Toga's character, I like her overall plot, I've enjoyed her plot, I have been very interested in what direction her character will go, because, I mean, with Twice's death, to what happened around, like, chapter 341, I believe, with the whole burning of the house, to just what's happened in the aftermath of the war, there's been a lot of things that's been making me wonder, what will Toga decide to do? What is her decision? What path will she take? And the way the story has been trying to paint Toga up to this very point is that she is a very sympathetic villain. She is, thanks to her circumstances, her upbringing, and her quirks pretty much as a curse, she is living the life she is. And that's kind of the way Horikoshi Sensei has been trying to paint her character for a very long time. Even though there was a lot of areas that showed that Toga was obviously irredeemable, it still made you very sympathetic. It's just like, man, what if some things were a little bit different? She would probably be a lot better of a person if she was given a little bit more encouragement, etc. But thanks to her being born with a quirk that just craves blood like a vampire, it's led to her circumstance. Now, I think many might instantly assume, so you don't like the chapter because it didn't do what you wanted with Toga. No. No. I mean, it is a part of it, but it is not the main reason. When I look at what this chapter is, okay, it feels off. Like, it feels like Toga's character is off. Like, there is something missing between point A and point C. Like, point B is completely gone. That's what this chapter feels like to me. It feels like there is something missing between the interaction we had with Dabi and Toga to this point, with her getting to talk with Ochiko, Tsuyu, and Izuku. It feels like something is definitely missing there, and that's kind of one of the big things I've been talking about for months now, is that My Hero Academia has felt rushed. It is something I have definitely talked about, and many in the community have talked about. And I just made a video on this a few weeks back, basically saying that, even though it does feel rushed, this arc has been pretty good. It is definitely building up to an interesting arc. But obviously, we get to see some more of that feeling of something feels off with this chapter. So let me kind of get it out there, explain why. So once again, I want to reinstate the point that Toga has always been painted by Horikoshi Sensei that she's sympathetic. You should feel bad for her, pity her, sympathize with her that, she isn't necessarily 100% evil. Even chapter 341, which showed her entire house and her flashbacks and stuff, and when Dabi lit it on fire, it was to paint Toga in a different light. She isn't this cruel, evil person. There is a lot more to her character, more complexity, and there's more to offer, basically. That's kind of what that showcased. And even Twice's death, with Toga holding Twice while Twice just evaporated, like his clone evaporated, it was to show a sense of loss, and it brought up the question, do heroes think that villains are unnecessary? They need to be thrown away, they're lesser, etc. And that concept does get brought back up into, this latest chapter, but the point is that Toga wondered if her life was truly worthless, if she shouldn't be around, and finally losing someone and having some consequences for her actions, you think that she would have, been able to think about what, this path she's taking would lead to. For instance, thanks to her, actions, led to maybe one of the people she cares about, Twice, aka Twice, that we know, died. So when you think about that, it's like, you think she would reflect on that. But clear as day, she doesn't. And this chapter paints Toga in more of a, she's just evil. That's literally what the chapter paints it as. Like, she wants to do anything she wants without any responsibilities. And it just makes a character that had a lot of complexities in depth into a very shallow character. That's what this chapter effectively did to her. And that is one of the big things that I don't like about it. It's just like, oh, she's evil. That's it. Oh, she's just bonkers. bonkers, she's just twisted love, that's it. And I do like the imagery, which is a good point of this chapter. The imagery is showing the twisted face of Toga when she's looking at Izuku and saying she wants to suck his blood. It once again depicts how messed up her mind is. But at the same time, like I said, just because she has this twisted form of love, there was a lot more going on with her character, but this chapter simplifies her down to such a degree. It's just like she's irredeemable, she's evil, she has nothing good about her whatsoever, and that's about it. So I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about that. I really don't know how I feel. But obviously there's more to this chapter than that. It is the overall strength of Toga. So, yes, Toga has a crazy quirk. She is able to turn into other people and even use their quirk. We have seen what she has done in the past with this. We have seen her transform into Ochiko, use gravity, which is just insane when you think about it in that dangerous scenario. But the point does not change, is that Toga in her, base form, pretty much without transforming, she is just a kid. She's a girl that knows how to use a knife. That's pretty much about it. And when you think about what Izuku has been through, everything we have seen from the story, and Izuku's power scaling, Izuku in general, his power alone, as a user of One for All, not even counting danger sense, let's just talk about the base power of One for All, not even the extra quirks. He should have been easily able to just knock Toga out in this chapter in a second. Just in a fraction of a second. It should not have been that difficult. All he would have had to do was slam his fist to the ground in a certain way. He could have knocked her out. Or he could have speed blitzed her, grabbed her, pinned her onto the ground. It would not have been hard. We have seen Izuku already do insane feats of speed. He has, dodged bullets. He wants to fight literally, mega Shigaraki. Shigaraki at almost full power, and he thinks that fighting Toga is difficult. Do you not see what's wrong with that? There's something incredibly wrong with that writing, where he's struggling to face Toga, but he wants to rush over to Shigaraki, which is in a whole other ballpark in comparison to what Toga is. And this whole thing going on in these latest chapters with danger sense is kind of starting to get me a little bit upset. And let me explain on that end. There's been many times throughout My Hero Academia that Izuku's had fights without danger sense. Yes, I know he has probably become over-reliant on the quirk. He is relying on the quirk, and that is why he, is constantly thinking about danger sense. But it doesn't, dispute the fact that he has had countless fights without danger sense, and he has come out on top. He has focused and analyzed the things around him. It's his very character to analyze his opponents, analyze the surroundings and situation. That is literally his character. He has notebooks on villains and heroes. He writes about everything. That's his character. So when he is struggling to fight Toga because he doesn't have danger sense, I'm just like, what is going on here? It doesn't make any sense. He could speed blitz her. She's just a girl with a knife. She is not turned into any other quirk user. She is just a girl with a knife, and that's it. And so seeing him struggle is it's painful. It's really painful and unbelievable, especially since this is our character that's supposed to be going after Shigaraki. Just, like I said, that doesn't make sense. But to make it so much worse, she cuts Black Whip. Yeah, I know that's easy to miss. If you are quickly glancing over the chapter and you just look at Tsuyu and Ochiko and all that dilemma, you could easily miss that, Toga cut Black Whip with her knife. A little knife. And I'm just like, whoa. Okay, let's just talk about that can of worms right now. Black Whip, we have seen already multiple times throughout the story that it is capable of lifting up buildings. It is so powerful. And it was even stated when it first unlocked how dangerous it was. It could kill people. It is that powerful because it is a super beefed up version thanks to One for All. And so seeing Black Whip just casually broken by a knife is just like, huh? Especially when we have seen its overall durability and strength. Now, I know people might bring up piercing damage to striking damage or blunt damage, etc. to certain things could have different effects to an ability. But when we look at Black Whip, it's pretty much like a ethereal energy that he's able to shoot out and grab with. And like I said, he's grabbed buildings with it. It's very durable. It's very powerful. And for Toga to use a casual knife just to cut it, I'm just like, what? what? Like, it just, all Izuku would have to do to, like, get Ochiko, okay? Like, this goes back into the point of how he could easily deal with her. If he even doesn't want to use, let's say, his smash technique, just, hitting the ground or whatever, he could use float, fly in the air, and just spam Black Whip on Toga and grab her. Or literally just put Black Whip into the ground and lift up the surface of the ground with Black Whip and then fight her on a floating surface where she can't run. Just remove her area of running. It would be literally that simple. So, seeing how she was able to cut Black Whip, and, Izuku struggling with her, danger sense not working, just everything about that just feels so freaking wrong. And once again, this is coming from a guy that likes Toga. I really do like Toga's character, but this chapter does some awful things with her character and Izuku's character that is at the point of unbelievable. It is unbelievable in terms of what direction this chapter went. So, with Tsuyu coming in, obviously, and saying, we don't have time for this romance drama and stuff, it kind of puts the plot back in perspective, and when we see Izuku start running across the water, like, the man is so fast, he's able to run across water, like, let's put that one into perspective, okay? So, I've been talking about speed blitzing, being able to handle Toga. If he can run across water, he can deal with Toga. And that's what is unbelievable about all of this. It's like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't. And it's there just to kind of, honestly, when I look at what's going on with these chapters, it's the length and the time of Shigaraki being able to fight Izuku. That's exactly what's going on here. Like, think about this, okay? What is really the main point? If we cut out everything, cut off the subplots, etc., with, like, Toga and Ochiko and all that, if we just don't think about that, and we just think about what the actual objective is of the actual story, the main objective, it is to bring down Shigaraki and All for One. And splitting Izuku up from the main pack is obviously delaying that final confrontation, that conflict between One for All and All for One. That is what effectively these chapters have done. It's just separated Izuku from the battlefront. And so him having to rush over is a very Dragon Ball Z-esque thing. For instance, in Dragon Ball, when, let's say, the Saiyans, for instance, Vegeta and Nappa, they arrived, Goku obviously had to rush over on Snake Way to get over to deal with the Saiyans, but while he was doing that, everyone pretty much died against Nappa in Dragon Ball Z. And that was to create tension, build up, there was a lot of time that needed to be spent for Goku to rush over there. And that's kind of what is happening with Izuku. For instance, he's far away from the battlefield, so now he has to run over there to get there in time to be able to save the day against Shigaraki, which some might die in the process. So it's a way to add tension and delay the final battle. That's exactly what it's for. So I don't know how I feel about Toga as a character, or her entire subplot being used like that. I don't like that. I don't like her entire subplot being used to just like, oh, let's buy time for the final fight. That's it. I don't like that. That like I said, some things in this chapter just do not sit right with me. But okay, let's go a step further, obviously. So, besides all the doom and gloom and negativity I have talked about, I do want to talk about Toga's character. Now that obviously she's not really redeemable, she's just evil and not really sympathetic whatsoever, let's just talk about her plot. So Toga as a character, I think it's been very apparent that she is based on vampire lore, myth, etc. She's a vampire. That's what she's pretty much been depicted as. She is someone that craves blood. She's driven insane by blood. That's very similar to what a vampire is. For instance, without blood, a vampire goes crazy. They'll attack anyone in sight to get what they need, or they die. And in this case, I feel like Toga is in a very similar way. If she doesn't get that fix, if she doesn't get that blood, if she doesn't get that, blood from someone she cares about, she feels like she is in pain, she's desperate, etc. So it's clear the themes, what's going on there, what's happening with Toga, and that overall, section of her story is still intact. She is just driven insane by her very quirk. It is sad, but like I said, I don't feel any sympathy for her character at this point, because she understands the consequences now thanks to losing twice, but she doesn't want to accept those consequences, even though she's literally been smacked in the face by reality itself. And yeah, but the point is that she she is following the traditional vampire storyline, and that's kind of what's going on here, is that she just can't help herself. That's exactly what it is, and no matter what you do, you really can't help her, because she is, at the end of the day, pretty much like a blood-sucking vampire. You can't do anything about that, and I feel like no matter how much Ochako tries to reach out and, let's say, extend a hand, it's not going to be enough. For instance, it's never going to be enough, and Toga is not going to reach for that hand, because you can't save someone that doesn't want to be saved. You can't save someone that doesn't reach for your hand, and Toga is beyond that point. She is not going to reach for a hand. She's not going to ask for help. She rejects the entirety of the world itself because she feels like the world has rejected her. That is her overall mental state. So because of that, there is no helping her. She is literally not going to be saved by any means, which is tragic, and I know Ochiko's probably going to feel like she failed her, but in reality, just looking at the character's turnout, there is no other option, honestly, than this. Now, seeing where the story direction has actually went. Now, in terms of story direction, we could talk about Twice. Since we know that Toga has Twice's blood, and she can initiate Sad Man's Parade again, this leads into some potential. I feel like there is some hope for the subplot of Toga, depending on the overall conflict with Sad Man's Parade. If, let's say, hypothetically, she uses Sad Man's Parade, there's a possibility, if she really does utilize the personality of Twice, and, really wants to represent him, one of Twice's clones probably will say, oh, I become the very thing I've hated. I become a clone. That's not even my real self. My real self is already long dead. He'll feel like an imposter in his own body, and especially knowing that it's Toga that is technically creating him. It'll make him feel very weird, if Toga obviously uses his real personality and doesn't distort it in whatever way, thanks to, being able to turn into other people. So I do wonder about that direction, if she hears Twice say, oh, I don't like this, I wonder how she'll feel about that if someone she cares deeply about does that. But, yeah, the chapter is, it looks good, and there is some things that are good about it, but overall there is, like I said, a lot of bad. There is a lot of bad with this chapter, and it effectively tarnishes Toga's character to such a degree it's unrecognizable. But I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully the next chapter is a lot better. Hopefully there's a little bit more depth to Toga now, instead of just throwing everything to the side. But I love you. Be safe. Stay healthy, everyone. Chibi out.